Hey guys, welcome back. This week I've been reading a lot about how to develop a signature tone or copying tones on a Marshall Code amp. I personally play on the Marshall Code 50. Now there are mixed reviews online. A lot of people say this amp is junk, it sounds boxy, etc., etc. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a tip that I found that worked for me, and I just kind of discovered this just like playing around. One day I was playing around and I had shoes on, which I don't have right now, and I got too close to the amp. I was overly excited, and my foot went underneath the amp and lifted it up, and I noticed there was a whole different sound. So obviously we're on an iPhone, right? So the sound that you get isn't going to be that much unless you have headphones on or anything like that. But it is noticeable. It's definitely noticeable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys what it sounds like on the floor and where people are getting this, well, it sounds boxy and things like that. And then I'm going to show you my little trick that has kind of all but eliminated that. And then on top of that, I'm going to walk you guys through setting this up and making it sound less boxy. So this is where I talked about last week about really getting to know your equipment and getting to know some things that are going on with it. So here. So first we'll start on the floor. Okay? It's on the floor. I haven't touched anything. This is on my own personal setting. I'll give you guys the numbers for my personal setting later on. So here we go. Right? So there's that. Sounds kind of muddy, sounds kind of boxy. Sounds like it's really trapped in a box. It does. There's no other way around it. And this is on my own personal setting. So then after I discovered this little trick that I'm about to show you guys, it just made all the difference in the world to me. So here, what I did was I made a little stand. And this was actually from my Boy Scout troop from their flag. But I made a little stand. So I take this, I'm gonna raise it up. This is about 2 inches. You can raise it up, I've seen people do it like 1 inch, it's just really personal preference. This is about 2 inches. So now, here we go. So now, we don't really have that muddy sound anymore, which is quite strange for me. I can't quite explain how this works. I wish I could. So I can't quite explain how this works. So one of the tips that I've heard was turning the cab option off. Now, when I did this and I started playing around with like JCMs and JVMs and even some of the DSLs, it sounded weird, like just really hot and really funky. So you can do that, but this is where I talked about last week about like getting to know your equipment, right? So play with the knobs, figure out what's going on. I'm going to give you guys a couple of my settings that I use for these things. So here, let me pull it up on the iPad. I took some screenshots of my phone because I don't like to use the iPad for it. The iPad interface for the Marshall Gateway app is, to me, clunky at best. So I don't like it. So here we go. All right. So my own personal setting, right? And I call this my set. Here, it's not gonna let me turn it around. Is it? Let me turn it around. No, it's not. Okay, so my own personal setting for this. Let's see if we can get it good. See if I can get the numbers in there. I call this my set. I am using a Plexi Pre with an American AB with a 1960 HW, hand-wired. Anything I do, for whatever reason, my ear just seems to pick up on the 1960 hand-wired the best. I don't know why. I think this goes back to me when I was first learning guitar. I picked one of these up in a pawn shop, and I've just loved it ever since. So I have the gain set at 10. I have the volume set at 4.5. The gate is set at 4.1. That allows me to get a little bit of feedback if I want it. Bass is 5.5. Middle is 5.1. Treble is 7.5. So I like to scoop the mids a little bit. I don't really like a whole lot of bass, but I do. That's one of the things my ears really pick up on is the bass signals. And treble kind of hurts my ears a lot. So I don't really, for this to be this high is really kind of out of the norm for me, but it works with this plexi head. Now for the distortion or for the dirt, I use, let's see if we can get this close enough. I use the pedal with the distortion. I use the governor, and everything is set straight up the middle. So your drive, tone, and level all at 5. And that's my own personal setting. That's what you heard me playing out there, okay? That's my own personal setting. Now this came from 3 weeks of playing with this amp and just going, this sounds like crap. This sounds like crap. This sounds like crap. And I didn't like it. So one of the other settings that I will frequently use because I love my guitars to chug. Just no way about it. But I'm also an old guy, so you know I recognize that a lot of times, like some of the music I play, I don't really chug. So I like my guitars to chug. So that brings us to my, since I'm an old guy, my 80s rock and metal setting. And let's see if I can get this. You're not gonna do it, are you? Focus, focus, focus. All right, so I'll walk you through my 80s rock and metal. I'm using an OD American with an American Class AB, again, 1960 hand-wired. Just about anything I use is going to be 1960 hand-wire. My gain is set at 9.0, volume straight up the middle, right up at 10, all the way to the max. The gate is set at 6.9. Actually, I think that should be 7.0, but I mean, we're talking like 0.1 of a digit. So you can go 6.9, you can go 7.0, whatever works for you. Bass is at 6.0. My mids are at 1.1. This amp, this particular amp, the OD American with the American Class AB, already scoops the mids a lot. And when you're playing, you know, old school metal or even new school metal, you don't really want a lot of mids because you want it to chug and you want it to scream. So this is my personal opinion. This is what works for me. My treble, again, set at 7.0. I don't know why I have it set that high. It kind of hurts my ears. I'm going to futz with it some and see what I can get. So on my presence and my resonance, I just keep it straight up the middle on both. You can futz with it and fiddle with it and see what sounds best for you. I like everything straight up the middle because I start losing sustain, I start losing, you know, certain sounds, I start losing certain tones that I can adjust with the knobs on my guitar. So for my pre-effects, right? Again, this time I'm using something a little bit different. Let's see if we can get it to focus. Come on, there we go. No, we don't want my finger in there. My finger's not cool. There we go. All right, so I've got overdrive. The drive is 8.7, tone is 2.1, and level is 6.3. All right. That's what I use for like metal. So when you guys like hear me play Metallica or stuff like that, you know, when I throw it up on Ultimate Guitar or anything that chugs, anything that just really chugs, that's what I'm using. That is the setting that I'm using. Take those, use them for what it's worth. If you're on the fence and you just got this Marshall Code amp and you're on the fence and you're like, man, this thing sounds like it's in a box. First, I suggest getting it off the floor, right? Get it off the floor. It'll be a lot less muddy. It'll be a lot less thuddy, right? So when you go to make that crunch or make it chug, it's not going to be so thuddy on you. Or if you're dropping your tuning and you're getting up around 12 and you're hearing it going, and it's vibrating in the back, pop it up about 1 inch to 2 inches and it gets rid of that. All right. Lastly, if it's still not the way you want it to sound, just turn off the cab. Right? I've had so many people just say, just turn off the cab. Now you will have to play with it a whole lot more when you turn off the cab. But all in all, for a good little practice amp that mimics the sounds that I want it to, the eras of music that I want it to, for you know, I'd probably even use this for gigging if I gigged, but I don't. But my buddy comes over, you know, he hops on my kid's drums over here. And I crank the volume up like halfway, man, and it sounds perfect to me. and I've been doing this for a long time. So get to know your equipment, try out these settings, see if they work for you. If they don't, let me know. If you have some better suggestions or you have some settings that you want to share with me, share them down below. Would love to try something else out, especially for stuff for like, Mastodon and stuff like that just really chugs. I'd love to hear what you guys have. Share it with me. Love to have it. So for now, that's it. Get to know your equipment, play around with this stuff, man. But I'm telling you, like, a lot of people are saying, this thing is, not that great. It's a great little amp. You just have to futz with it. It's not one of those that you can just, pull it out of the box, slam on the EQ, and just go. If you're wanting something like that, then get a Randall, right? Get a Randall or even a Mesa Boogie, But if you want something that's going to model certain eras, it's going to bring you back to a time, or even just, you want to just capture that sound, this is a good amp for it. It's a really good amp. And bear in mind the sounds that you're hearing from it are from an iPhone, so it's not going to be as great. Maybe if I mic'd it up and I put it in a line in, we might get different results. You'll hear some of the things that I'm talking about. But I know when I go back and I listen to this before I post it, there's going to be a noticeable difference, even on the iPhone speakers. So try it. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, all right. If you have different suggestions for some settings for me, drop them down below. Would love to have them. Thanks, guys.